Blog Talk Radio.
Howdy, everybody. This is Nature of Reality Radio. It is... Oh, got a huge echo here. Let me solve that problem first. Now, let me ask the guests in the chat room if they hear the echo. I might as well continue on. It may just be something I hear on my computer only, and if that's the case, I'll just deal with it. So here on December 4th, 2013, I suppose we should start with the simple basic news, and of course, as always, I go to Infowars.com. Wow, headline here, new NSA revelations, another limited hangout whitewash. Says here, mainstream media still refuses to acknowledge Echelon has listened in on all communications since 1990. And once again, with the NSA, I keep saying it's not about safety. If it was about safety, they wouldn't have denied doing it in congressional testimony, which, of course, they did. And city presses charges against veterans for raising chickens. Whoa. That reminds me of another incident in Georgia not that long ago where this guy got arrested for growing chickens in his yard, and he was eventually murdered for mysterious reasons. This could be deja vu all over again. And what else do we got here? Chinese state media brags of plan to establish Death Star moon base. Well, the moon's an artificial body, so that really doesn't come as too much of an astonishment. Well, NASA should stand for not always a straight answer. By the way, guys, sorry if you hear me have to pause in my tone here and my voice here because my computer is echoing very badly, and I don't know why that's the case, but it may cause me to be a little distracted. So I'll try to deal with it. I hope you guys don't have any problems with it. So let's move on here. Oh, NFL faces national protest. You know, it was only about a year ago when Alex Jones decided that he would boycott the NFL because of anti-gun propaganda with Bob Costas trying to brainwash everyone into thinking negatively about guns. Well, he's trying to boycott the NFL again, Alex Jones is, this time for some more anti-gun stuff, but this time it involves a commercial that I believe was banned. Not only that, the Baltimore Ravens were given $130,000 to improve Obamacare. Well, that's really hard to solve because we know Obamacare is a tax designed to screw us over and bankrupt us and get all the good insurance companies out of business. The federal government does not have authority to pass laws that affect the people of the several states. Well, they do that all the time. They shouldn't do it, but they do. They've been hijacked by banks and corporations and Illuminati secret societies that have put a global spider web all over planet Earth. Well, that's pretty hard to swallow nonetheless. And is Amazon's drone announcement a giant public relations hoax? Yeah, Amazon was going to use drones to deliver things. That's what a big story was recently, and it's just another thing to get us acclimated to drones. And those drones obviously are not for our safety. They're to intimidate us, harass us, and to keep us in a state of perpetual fear. Well, what else have we got here? Oh, it might be interesting to know that all the way back in 1995, ET contactee Alex Collier was saying that December 3rd, 2014 would be the date we set into a 5D Earth. Well, that date has come and gone. It didn't happen. But does that discredit Alex? No, I don't see why not. I mean, the Andromeda aliens who he gets contact from work from higher levels of consciousness where there is no sensation of time. So just for that, it could cause them to go by another timeline and not realize exactly that it was this timeline. That's the way those aliens operate. Well, if you're willing to believe Andromeda Council contactee Tulloch, who said Alex Collier was in many ways his predecessor, you would believe that January 2014 will be the time we ascend into 4D Earth. He didn't say 5D Earth, he said 4D Earth. That requires a huge leap of faith. And by the way, I would not go about life thinking that that's going to happen, because if you think that you're going to be saved by ascension, then you're going to have a lot of problems in life. So I seriously would not recommend that. Be especially careful doing that with thinking, oh my God, things are going to get better because we're going to ascend in January now. Just go about your life as if that's not going to happen. There has been some fear that Tulloch has been captured. Silver Legion contactee Tanath and Sunfire of the Galactic Federation of Planets said that there is a chance that Tulloch has been captured because he's been acting differently and whatnot, and his tone of character is different, and they said they've been his friend, but he seems to be acting differently. And Comet Ison, they could not seem to agree, Tulloch and one side, and who said it was benevolent aliens, and Tanath and Sunfire, who said that it was malevolent reptilian aliens who were controlling Comet Ison, which was an alien spaceship, not an actual comet. And well, they can't seem to figure out why that happened. Why there was a debate and whatnot. But regardless of whatever may be the case, let's not worry about ascension. It'll happen when it happens. Let's lead our life to the fullest and go on a love-filled experience. So might as well get started with talking about my guest now. On episode 5 of Nature of Reality Radio tonight, I will, and by the way, I'm reading off the show description that I wrote here, I will welcome Geomancer, or Earth Healer, if that makes sense, past Vice President of the British Society of Dowsers and Chair of the Earth Energies Group, Reiki Master and Holistic Masseur Adrian Incledon-Webber, who is recommended to me by my past guest Shawn Cohen, who is in the chat room. And he's not on the show yet. He hasn't called in. Let me check Skype. Maybe he's online. So he is calling right now. I guess I might as well let him on. Adrian? Yes, I can. So I finally learned something. If you call in on Skype, it's not going to be on my Blog Talk Radio list here. So let you on a little early. Usually I say 10 to 15 minutes for the show to start with the news, but usually works out sooner than that because I'm a fast talker and I get things out of the way quickly. But it's great to have you on. By the way, were you hearing the echo on the other side of the line? Were you listening or not? Okay, because my computer, and I got a new monitor, by the way, was echoing back, like there was a second delay, and then it started going back. I don't know if I need to fix something or that, but you said you didn't hear it. It might just be another Blog Talk Radio glitch. By the way, Shawn says she can't hear you. So I think that means that you need to call into the show using Skype. Do you have the guest call-in number? I can give it to you right now. Okay, the guest number is, and by the way, I don't know how you go about calling America from the UK. Hopefully you know how to do that. But the number, the way I give it to you would be 1646 478 4747. I don't know if you need to dial anything before the 1, but I believe maybe you have to dial 00. I think I once saw that somewhere. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. All right, so he apparently is off Skype at the moment. He'll have to call into the show using Skype or whatnot. So I guess I'll get into quickly discussing some of the things he does. Geomancer, Earth Healer. Well, there's the ley lines on the Earth. The Earth's energy grid, which apparently Plato knew about all the way in the times of ancient Greece. And these ley lines form a grid of, I don't know the exact amount of triangles that all these lines put together will form, but it's basically all the equators around the world. He deals with that. If you were to do the dowsing thing where you use the dowsing rods. By the way, I'm hearing the echo on my computer again. Sorry if that causes me to have trouble speaking here, but you can walk with rods known as dowsing rods. Kind of hard to describe. It's like an L with something to hold it in your hand with, and you would walk on the ground, and if there's some form of energy, be it water or like a water underground or a ley line, the dowsing rod would turn in the direction of the ley line or the water or whatever the energy source may be on the earth. And he's also a Reiki Master. I believe that I don't really know too much about it. I've listened to some of it. Geomancer, who's a Reiki Master and healer, he talked about Reiki in an interview with Alfred Weber that I listened to, and they talked about how they do during Reiki sessions. I'm not an expert on it, but it's about healing other than allopathic medicine, which only treats the symptoms and not the causes. This is much better than that. So, hey, Adrian, hopefully you'll call in soon because this echo is driving me crazy and making it hard to talk. Again, the number is 646-478-4747. I don't know if you have to, well, there's a letter S for Skype on my line, but I use Direct Connect instead. So hopefully he'll get in, and hopefully I'll be able to work with this echo that's going back on my computer, being such a distraction here. But some other things he does, a holistic masseur. Well, I don't know exactly what holistic masseur is, but I'm sure it has something to do with remedies and whatnot and healing. And I would certainly love us to have some other form of healing available other than allopathic medicine. And as the Rockefellers created a medical monopoly about 100 years ago on the medical market in America, and now we have to, and now because of that, we can only have the symptoms treated. And MDs, bless their hearts. My mother's an MD, as a matter of fact, and she acknowledges that this is true about how it only treats the symptoms, but she asserted if people don't want to come to me, then they don't have to come to me. If they feel it helps them, then that's perfectly okay for them to do, to come to me, even though I may only be able to treat the symptoms. Hang on, folks. I'm going to try to give Adrian the number again, and I'm sure he's got it right, but just to make sure. I see Adrian is still on my Skype account. I was mistaken in thinking that he could actually call in on Skype, and it would not, and it would be on my list of caller screen. But hopefully he'll. He said he could hear me, so here's what I'm saying. I don't know why it's having a problem getting on. Well, since I'm still waiting, I guess I'll once again have to work through this echo and give him some credibility here. Adrian was past vice president of the British Society of Dowsers and chair of the Earth Energies Group. I mean, seems like some pretty prominent positions in fields of research that the New World Order does not want you to know about. So I think this is going to be it's going to be an opportunity to learn some things that they don't want you to know, which hopefully my psychic Shawn Cohen is on. See if I can get a hold of her here, what she wants to tell me. Hey, Shawn, maybe you could help me here and figure out why he's not on.
Andrew, I'm already on it, and I've got Adrian on. He couldn't log on to the Skype for whatever reason, but Now what's going to happen is he's on the phone here in the UK, and he's going to talk to you via my Skype. How's that?
Oh, that'll work. Okay.
Well, I figure it's going to say, two birds with one stone. So here he is. He'll just speak because he's on speakerphone. There you go.
Hey, can you hear me right now? Are we okay there now, Andrew? You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, but the problem is you are echoing like crazy. This
It's ridiculous, this, isn't it? I'm just trying to log on through as we've talked with Shawn, and I just can't seem to get beyond the Facebook page at the moment. It doesn't seem to want to log on through Skype, and I don't know quite why.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I am having great difficulty hearing you because there's a 2-second delay after I speak, and everything that I am saying is echoing. So it may be a good idea for us to communicate through the chat room if that's possible, and we can figure out how to stop this echo. If it's a Blog Talk Radio glitch, then I don't know how we can possibly have this show because it's going to be impossible to communicate with each other.
Yeah, I can get you via Skype as before, but of course people then can't hear me talk, can they?
Well, in fact, I couldn't hear Adrian, but I could hear Andrew. And now we're on Skype, and basically my Skype is working that Andrew can hear me, and he can hear you. So the only other thing to do is, and I'm just guessing here, is that Adrian goes back in and tries to come back on your show via Skype. But this time because he heard how to do it through me. So, should we all try that?
Yeah, should I go back onto Skype now?
Andrew?
Yeah, I guess so. So, you want me to call in on Skype? Yeah?
No, what's going to happen is Adrian's going to try to come on his own Skype from his own computer.
Okay.
And I'm going to come off, okay? And just be a listener.
Okay, I'll do that now and see if we can get sorted.
And if there's
Is it better for Andrew to give me a call on Skype, do you think?
Oh, Andrew, can you actually call Adrian on Skype?
Yeah. Well, the problem is I'm already on using Direct Connect, and I'm not sure how to get off Direct Connect to call in on Skype.
Right, he's on another system. Do you understand that, Adrian?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay, boy, talk about gremlins. Okay, well, I think if Adrian tries to call you back on Skype, and both of you have your microphones up, which you do, Andrew, and maybe Adrian has to make sure his microphone is up, the sound is up, then maybe it can work. Okay?
Okay, all right, I'll give Andrew a call now.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, bye, Adrian.
Well done, Shawn.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Boy, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, how you doing, Adrian? Yeah, it's probably just a Blog Talk Radio glitch that's causing the very unpleasant echo that's going on here. I mean, I cannot hear the echo now that I'm speaking to you on Skype. So that leads me to believe it is probably a Blog Talk Radio glitch. Now, this whole thing about having your microphone off, how do we go about that? I would have to get confirmation from Shawn in the guest room. But in order to turn my microphone off, do I just have to press this button here on my headset? Is that how you, or do you just? Oh, I see. I actually don't have to do that. I just have to click on mute here. So I'm supposed to do that whenever you are talking. That's how the idea works. Yeah. Okay. So as soon as I get my question in, I'll put myself on mute, and then when you're done talking, I'll try to turn it on. Okay. So, yes, Blog Talk Radio can be a pain, can't it? So this didn't happen with other people, but there was that other show with George Kavasilis that the listeners could not hear it live except for the last 9 minutes. That's probably even worse than this if you think about it. So, whatever the case may be, what question should I start with you? All right. Why don't you tell us a little background about yourself, why you do what you do, and then after that, we'll get into the specifics of what it is that you do and the science behind it. Let's do that. Okay, Adrian, I think it's pretty clear you actually do have to call into the show for me to hear you. I mean, when I said call on Skype, I don't mean call my Skype number. I meant call the show number. I mean, I gave you the numbers. Are you having trouble calling into the show for some reason? I mean, George Kavassilis used Skype to call into my show, and why can't you? Yeah, the 646, that's the number you're supposed to be calling in. You didn't do that. Yeah, that's what you were supposed to do. Okay, I think it's 001 that you're supposed to, I gave you the number 1 when I told you on Skype, the 1 and then the 646, but I think you're supposed to dial something before that. It might be the number 00, so you're supposed to call that. Okay. Okay. All right. All right, so he's going to be calling into the show again. Boy, this has to be this complicated. Hopefully I will not hear an echo when he gets on. If I do, then that will officially mean that Blog Talk Radio has a terrible glitch, and that means I may have to cancel this show, and this thing will have to wait until another time. Okay. Let me tell Shawn that... let me tell Adrian, not Shawn. Shawn is telling me that the code is that you are supposed to dial, that she's supposed to dial 001 to 646 and then the rest of the number. So I'm going to tell him that now. Well, you know, when I upload this video to YouTube, I'll probably say, listen to the first 10 minutes and then skip over everything else because we had a huge problem. Don't want people wasting their time listening to us having a big dilemma over how to get on this show. He still isn't on, so hard to believe all this happened because we did not know how to call from the UK to the USA. So my echo seems to have gotten down a bit. So let's wait until he gets on. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to put in the video description, skip over this everything from this video but after the first 10 minutes to the next 25 minutes because thank you, Shawn, for giving the code. I don't know why this is becoming a problem. I appreciate you calling in to help here. So I guess I might as well not really say anything else until Adrian calls in. Folks, we are still on the air. It's just I don't really know what else to say right now in this echo that I'm hearing, but don't hear when they're on. Just makes it too hard to talk. So consider this a moment of silence until we can figure out how to fix this. I did send him a text to call in. Shawn just saying, just send a text to call in and call the number, but he isn't on the caller board for some reason. I guess Adrian's never called into a show on Skype before. Shawn is saying codes, and I have to ask her what codes. I'm not an expert at Skype too. I only got it recently. I thought I would just use Direct Connect for this show, but had to get Skype to make. So now she's going to tell him how to do this. The codes for America that he apparently has to enter. I am not sure exactly what that is, but neither does he. So, hey, Shawn, if you want to call into the show again, that's fine. Well, of course, you have to call him, but I mean, you could maybe guide me because I have no way of knowing what you two are doing to try to solve this problem. Maybe if I knew, that would help. But I see you are attempting to call him again. I appreciate your help. It always helps to have a fan of the show who's this dedicated enough to help solve this. Never thought I would have to, calling a foreign guest, have to figure out dialing codes and all. Thought everybody knows that, but I guess not. Learn something new every day. Learned we have to dial before a number, dial after a number. We're still on the air. I need to take a glass of water here. We'll be on, hopefully, in the next couple minutes. She says he is calling in now. Okay, looks like I have him on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Adrian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeez, but I'm sorry about all this. Whatever. But I'm here anyway. You can hear me okay?
Well, I don't even know if we can continue because I'm hearing that dreadful echo again. It might be a glitch with Blog Talk Radio, but you know what? I'm going to see if we can solve that problem by doing the mute thing. So I am going to ask you a question right now, and then before you start talking, I'll put myself on mute, and hopefully that will get rid of this dreadful echo, and hopefully the listeners will hear us fine and we can continue. So I guess I could.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm really sorry about all this.
She doesn't hear an echo, and neither does the other users. So I guess I'm going to have to, ask you to repeat yourself. So I guess repeat everything you said last time about doing what you do. And how you believe it helps everybody, and we'll get into the science about that after you do explain that.
That's fine, Andrew. Okay, that's no problem. Well, what I do, I'm known as a Dowser and a Geomancer, which basically is all to do with earth healing. I started dowsing when I was about 7 years old. I was living in Cyprus. My father was in the Air Force in those days. And I answered an advert in my brother's comic for a metal detector, sent away for it. It was actually very, very cheap in those days, and a pair of dowsing rods turned up. So I was kind of conned into dowsing in my early days. So I've been dowsing for getting on towards 50 years now, on and off over that period. So when I first started off dowsing, I didn't know anything about earth energies and the healing side of the world. It was very much down to dowsing for lost objects, dowsing for pipes, and generally digging my brother in the ribs with the dowsing rods. And really over the years, I've been using dowsing for many different reasons. For dowsing at sacred sites, dowsing sort of answers to some of the questions that I've always wondered about, what our ancestors were up to. And it wasn't really probably until the early 80s that I started dowsing for health, doing my Reiki and other bits and pieces, very much the esoteric world. It then allied into my business, which at the time was running a real estate business in the Surrey area in England. And I used to sort of pick up feelings in houses that I'd walked into, and if I got a good feeling, there would be the houses that would sell pretty quickly. But if I got a bad feeling or a very uncomfortable feeling, they were often the houses that didn't. And it wasn't really until I got out of the business that I started looking into ways of really trying to sort these problem houses out, wondering how to do it, picked up the dowsing rods again and actually allied that with some of the healing that I'd been doing, some of the Reiki work and other universal healing, to actually then get dowsing spirits started. And I've been very busy ever since. Are you there, Andrew?
Okay, I'm back on. There may be a little delay after you stop talking because I'm going to have to get on. I am actually hearing the echo on my computer for some reason, but I'm going to suck it up and deal with it because I want to get this information out. I may have to listen to this whole thing all over again just to hear everything that you're saying in detail. I'm trying, but it's going to be a little hard because of this echo. So
yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Whatever the reason may be, I guess we'll continue. So, in regards to being an earth healer, what exactly do you heal? Do you heal the earth, or do you heal something else that's maybe on the earth? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, it can work in many ways. I'm called an earth healer or sort of heal people's houses, but generally you're working on both aspects. If you look at very much the holistic view on life, so you're working both on the problems that Mother Earth experiences that is mainly caused by us humans, but also working on doing healing on the people at the same time. So a lot of geomancy is to do with earth energy lines, to do with ley lines, to do with fault lines, energy spirals, stress lines that are created by human created problems. So if you've got quarrying, or you've got a coal mine nearby, or somebody's digging sort of deep foundations for a house, that can cause a lot of land disturbance as well. So by using intent, by sending healing to that particular area, you help not just Mother Earth, but also the people living on those problematical lines.
Well, it's good to know that you can heal people with the lines of the earth. I mean, everybody's starting to learn now that there is some truth to the earth energy grid. In fact, I listened to Alex Jones a lot when he was in the UK for the Bilderberg protest. He was at Stonehenge, and he felt a buzz when he was walking there, and the guy standing next to him said, "Oh, you just walked past the ley line." So he experienced it firsthand that it is obviously a true phenomenon. And I guess we might as well move on with the whole subject of dowsing. Yeah. And how exactly does it work? To the best of your ability, could you explain the science behind how dowsing works, and maybe silence the skeptics, if you will?
Okay, well, I'll try to. The thing is, don't forget, it's always good, it's always healthy being skeptical. It's being closed-minded that's the problem with a lot of people. The difficulty is, Andrew, with calling it science. As with a lot of science, say, if they can't prove it, then it doesn't exist. Well, that's not really true, is it? From many aspects of life. I think with dowsing, it's one of those sort of $1 million questions that nobody really is totally sure how it actually works. Some of the dowsers in the past saying it's very much down to earth radiation, so an energy coming from the earth that actually affects the dowsing rod. They're a bit like antenna of the body, so you've actually got like two car aerials which are picking up on the radiation. Another chap then came out many, many years later saying actually it's not radiation coming from the earth, but it's an external stimulus that comes into the body somewhere, and your body's picking up on the yes or no response, or the detrimental response to whatever you're looking for, and that's what moves the dowsing rod. So we're looking to try and see why or what the whole process is over the next sort of 2 to 3 years, allied to the British Society of Dowsers and a clinical neurophysiologist who's based down in Exeter. We're looking to do some mind mapping and trying to actually work out where the dowsing response comes from. I believe it's an external stimulus. I don't particularly think it's earth radiation or a particular energy coming from an underground water source or an energy line. I believe it's something deeper than that. It's something that it's inherent to all of us. We can all dowse, but it's to really what level you actually want to dowse at. So we're trying to bring it with a number of scientific experiments to actually see exactly how it does work. So I'm going to have to sort of leave it at that, but I'd like to say more, but I'm still not totally sure myself.
Okay, well, I appreciate you trying to the best of your ability to deal with the problem. And by the way, it's really, really weird that this echo is only on my side and not yours. I just tried to change the speaker configuration on my computer from the monitor to the headphones, and in fact, it only made it worse, so much so that right now I'm in the process of trying to fix it because it's pretty unpleasant to have to hear this.
Yeah,
so,
I can imagine.
Back to the computer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You're fine, but I think generally with dowsing, it's very, very similar to a response that hypnotherapists are working called the ideomotor response. So IDEOMOTOR. And whilst somebody's under sort of hypnosis, rather than asking a question, getting a yes and no answer, the hypnotherapists often will train their client to actually move a left finger or right finger. So the left finger might be a no response, and the right finger might be a yes response. So you're dealing with people's very deep subconscious when you're working in hypnotherapy, and I think that's to a certain point the key for dowsing as well. It's particular muscle responses that actually move the dowsing rod. So you actually are moving them yourselves rather than an outside source. But it's why they move in the first place that we're really trying to solve with these experiments over the next 2 to 3 years with dowsers, non-dowsers, total skeptics, total closed-minded people. So we're trying to go with a fairly big cross-section of people just to see where it comes from.
Okay, very interesting. I'm glad you're searching for answers because I'm searching for answers. In fact, someone who's a total novice at dowsing says, I don't understand how this works. You might say, hey, don't worry, in your difficulties on understanding dowsing, I can assure you that mine are still greater, to borrow from a famous Einstein quote where he said, don't worry about your difficulties in mathematics. I can assure you that mine are still greater. Likewise, I can assure you that my difficulties understanding the nature of reality are greater than almost anybody.
Absolutely.
That's why I created this show to solve this problem. So moving on to try to help solve that problem, let's move on to the next subject here, Reiki. I said earlier on I'm somewhat familiar with Reiki because I listened to a couple of interviews that Reiki Master Geomancer did with Alfred Weber on Alfred Weber's YouTube channel, and I also do some sort of meditations of sorts where you bring light into your body, unconditional love of light, and have it go down your body in different ways. And there's a couple different versions of that Alfred Weber did with Geomancer that are on the Alfred Lebermont Weber YouTube channel. If anybody who's listening wants to give them a try, I can tell you right now it does work to have that light come in, and you got to ask your guardian angels and spirit guides for help first. And in one case, he asks Archangel Raphael to spread green energy on you in one of the meditations. But I'm not sure if that has to do with Reiki or if that's another field that he does. But I guess we'll discuss that at a later time. But on to Reiki. Could you give us the science behind Reiki to the best of your ability?
Yeah, I think with Reiki, it's one, as you rightly say, it's becoming very, very well known now, whereas perhaps sort of 15, 20 years ago, it was looked at quite as sort of a thing that only sort of odd people get involved in. So a lot of people are beginning to look at Reiki, are beginning to look at, in some ways, maybe universal healing might be a better way of putting it these days, because I think any healer, when they're doing their work, and I use healer very, very lightly, it's something we tend to channel external energy, so it's not us doing the healing. It's an outside source. You're talking with your archangels, you're talking with heaven, if you like, trying to take away a bit of religion from it. But you're talking with some of these sort of very, very high spirits. To me, the highest of the high. Other people would look at God, as some spiritual healers work with. But generally, you're channeling a lot of this external energy, whether you call it intent, whether you call it the power of prayer. And science is beginning to start looking at it more and more. But of course, there's still a lot of bunkum out there. A lot of people will still rubbish it because you can't see it. You can't. Well, some people can see the colours, yes, and auric fields and whatever else. But you can't actually see the energy, and you can't actually see somebody getting better in front of you. It can be a slow process. It can be a very, very quick process. So I think universal healing is probably a better way of looking at it, and you are beginning to channel the energies from the archangels, from the angels, from Mother Earth as well, because don't forget, we're all, a lot of people are looking to try and become more spiritual and live a more ethical way of life by tapping into the higher powers, but of course we do have a job to do on the planet. So it's very, very important to use the energies from Mother Earth, which is not really used for Reiki. Reiki is normally channeling the higher energies, but with Mother Earth, don't forget to use the healing energies from the power of the sun, and don't forget the moon as well. For me, I try to channel as much as I possibly can, covering all possible avenues, and you get some fairly spectacular results from it.
Well, I'm glad, Jake, to hear you get good results from it. You're obviously on the right track there. But I'd like to move on. By the way, I'm definitely going to have to listen to everything you're saying. You sound like a knowledgeable man, and I'll have to listen to this again due to this sound problem. And definitely want to get this information in my heart, soul, essence, and I want everybody else to do it as well. I'm interested to see if when they record this, if somehow this echo gets in here, and I hope it doesn't, because that would inhibit the ability to get this important information out to the public, and we don't want that now, do we?
Okay. So no, we don't.
Let's move on to the subject that Shawn recommended, that I discuss haunted houses with you, because I wonder if my house is haunted, if that's causing what's going on here. But moving on, I hear you clear houses of their haunted energies, their fear-based haunted energies. So explain how you do that, and can anybody do that to their house if they think it's haunted?
Yes, they can. If somebody had told me I was going to be doing this about 15, 20 years ago, I would have laughed at them, because I was one of these kids that never ever liked being in the dark. I would never walk down my parents' garden in the dark. I certainly wouldn't go into a graveyard at night in the dark, and I really didn't like sleeping without the light on the landing at home. So it was something that I was always quite afraid of ghosts and quite afraid of spirits, but now, having worked with them quite a lot over the last 10 years, you begin to understand them. And I think, yes, most people could do the work, but you have to be a little bit careful. Most of my work is done remotely. I work from my house here in just outside Cheltenham in England, or very near Gloucester. And by doing remote work, I don't put myself in any danger. Spirits can be, just because somebody has died and perhaps hasn't gone to the light, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be lovely people. If they were sort of fairly miserable people or nasty or spiteful people when they were alive. But until they pass over properly, they will have the same characteristics. So they can be pretty nasty in people's houses. If you've got these unwanted or unpaid house guests, they need to be moved on. And the process that I tend to use really is, rather than looking at the typical exorcism route where you kind of walk in there and, sort of you banish them to hell, or you banish them outside the house and get them to move on to somewhere else. None of us really would like to be talked to like that, whether we're alive or dead. So I kind of take more a couple of mates meeting in the pub type approach. So you pull up a couple of bar stools, pour yourself a pint or pour yourself a nice dram of whiskey, and just start talking to them, trying to find out why they've passed over, try to find out, some of the problems they had in their life. And once you've found those problems out, it's then fairly easy to actually move them into the light. Sometimes you'll find that maybe one or two won't want to go. They're perhaps having such a ball, what they're doing, linked in with a particular person, that you need then to find another way around the problem. But then that's probably to a certain point where the salesman's approach come in. You've got to look at how you've got to tackle that particular problem. And if you know how they've died or why they're here, who they're linked into, then that gives you clues as to the next way of moving them through. So they're kind of like tricky spirits, but you just need to kind of find a way to actually move them along.
Okay, and since we're on the subject of haunted material, about ghosts, I believe maybe you did touch on this a little bit. It was kind of hard for me to hear for obvious reasons I've already explained a zillion times, but
sure.
I'd like to get into why some people will become ghosts, and also what is a ghost? I mean, I once heard David Icke say in a talk that a ghost is just another entity that is vibrating at another frequency, and when you see the ghost, that is interference where the frequency of this reality is interfering with the frequency of the ghost reality. And I'd like to get into if that is true, and also get into why people become ghosts, because if you commit suicide, you'll become a ghost. I've heard a zillion times, but are there other ways to become a ghost and not something more higher consciousness, lovely and beautiful, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, absolutely. I can see where David's coming from. I certainly wouldn't want to disagree, because everybody has their own sort of opinions, and it really then depends on how you view past life, present life, future life, or whether we're all living our lives at one, if you like, parallel lives, as Jane Roberts was channeling Seth many years ago. But I find with spirits, generally, one of the reasons, well, there are many, many different reasons why they don't go to the light. The classic one is perhaps a mother who dies in childbirth, very, very worried about her son or daughter being left behind. They will often stay on this earth plane to look after them. And, of course, that may well have happened sort of 100, 200, 300 years ago. Their offspring has now gone to the light, and, of course, the poor old lady is still stuck here, needing to be moved through. So that's one particular example. There could be somebody who's perhaps buried some treasure in the back garden or left some money up in the loft and want to tell their living relatives that it's there. They can often stay behind. They're anchored to money. Somebody might die very quickly in a road traffic accident or typical Second World War stuff, which is very, very classic. Somebody might have just been shot or blown to smithereens. They don't even know that they're dead. So they can be wandering around, and whether it's 1 minute, 1 day, 500 years or 1,000 years, time is fairly immaterial. It doesn't really mean a great deal to them. You obviously get other people who are sort of not particularly nice. They don't want to go to the light for fear of retribution. That could be both mental and physical abuse of somebody. So there are many, many different reasons why they don't go, and it's then you've got to then try and work out and try and encourage them to go, to say, look, there's no retribution there. Suicide is another one. Everybody again has different ideas. You can certainly look at James Van Praagh has a slightly different idea to me about suicide victims. I believe that they can go to the light, but other people will say that they have to wait for their time. So if they've committed suicide at the age of 14 and they weren't actually due to get to the light until they were sort of 45, 50, they would have to wait another 40 years to actually get up there. But I kind of don't feel that's logical. And, I can normally move them through. They normally go through, once you've discovered them, they will normally move through quite easily.
Okay, thanks for talking about that and clarifying that, because there's a lot of mysteries about ghosts people don't understand. But I guess we'll go on to the next subject that I have here on my list. Holistic material. I maybe you touched on it during when I asked you to discuss Reiki, but is Reiki a form of holistics? Because I must admit I'm not really an expert on other forms of medicine. I just know that allopathic medicine is obviously not the best, but
sure.
Holistics, is there a connection to Reiki, and can you explain the science behind holistics?
Yeah, it's all one and the same. It's very, very difficult with medicine because we do need mainstream medicine, and I think that a lot of people, a lot of holistic practitioners are very, very quick to damn the medical profession. We do need it at times. I don't always think that they have time to perhaps prescribe the right drug or look at the cause behind it. So that they will treat the symptoms, but they haven't often got enough time to treat the cause. So I think that we have to look at that very carefully. But I think with any form of healing, whether it's we're using Reiki or universal healing, or if you like magnetic healing, which is a way that we naturally do healing on ourselves and our loved ones. It's all holistic. We're looking at really trying to heal not just the body, but heal the mind and heal the aura as well. That lovely energetic field that surrounds us. It's all very, very important to look at that as a complete picture. If you do one without the other, then it can easily start creeping back to become a problem again. And this is why I look at really what I do is not just house healing, not just earth healing, but it's also people healing as well. So if you can combine all three, you can you can't guarantee anything these days, but you are going to get to the nub of the problem and start healing it from the ground upwards.
Okay, thanks for getting into that. And since you mentioned the aura, I I have also been practicing throughout the past couple of years, looking for auras, often looking at the trees and the plants, and even a few cases some people, but usually it's plants, trying to get accustomed to seeing auras, and I believe that I am seeing them. I mean, there was a video that Greg Prescott of in5d.com uploaded back in the day about how you can enhance metaphysical abilities, and one of the things was seeing auras, and the video basically said just keep watching and trying to see it, and you will see it. So, I mean, is there truth to that? Try to see it, and you will see it, and also to the best of your ability, explain the science behind how auras work and what they are.
Okay. Yeah, certainly. I think trying to see auras is always one ambition of mine, and the trouble is, Andrew, if you want to see something too much and you try too hard, often you can't see it, and that was the classic bit for me, that I was desperately keen to see them, and I was always told by medium friends of mine that, yeah, you can see them, everybody can see them. It wasn't until, probably only about sort of 7 or 8 years ago, I was down in a retreat in Glastonbury in the UK, a very holy place, and there was a Tibetan monk over, and it was a 5-day retreat, and about the 3rd day into the retreat, and I was watching him move, and every time he moved, it was a bit like a sort of a white blob behind him that actually moved a microsecond afterwards. And I kept looking, and he looked at me and said, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "Your aura." And he said, "So what? I've got one, you've got one." I said, "Yeah, but I've never seen it before." And he just smiled, that sort of enigmatic smile that the Queen of England smiles, just as much as say, "Well, I can see them all the time. I'm surprised that you can't." The easiest way of doing it, and in fact, I was at a friend of mine's house for lunch today, and we were talking about auric fields, and he was sitting in front of a very, very pale, almost a white wall behind him, and his wife is not particularly spiritual, and I was telling her how to see auric fields, and you just look at the person, but you don't focus on them, you actually kind of unfocus your eyes, and suddenly you'll be able to see this, often just a little pale, maybe 2-inch band around their head. You might start seeing colours, but that comes with a bit of practice. And once I've seen it around the Tibetan monk, I realised I've been seeing them all my life, but actually didn't realise what they were, which is kind of a bizarre thing for me to say. But I've been trying too hard, and I didn't realise it was easy as it actually was. So they're there, and there are many different layers, and you've got your first layer is your etheric field. It's like a second skin. It's like a protective skin. You've then got your emotional field, which is about 2'6" from your body, which the classic way of actually working out that is as you stand talking to somebody in front of you, you've normally got about a 2.5 foot gap between you, which is pretty much the outer edge of your emotional field. You start walking towards somebody and just see how they feel. You know, often you're within their emotional field and they get quite uncomfortable. You then got your mental field and your astral field, and so it goes on. Science is now working with them. They can actually pick up a lot of the bands coming through, and you can be taught to feel them as well. And this is really where positive thinking comes in. I think it was one of the guys, I can never remember his name, but he was, I think he developed the hard drive, and he would actually wire up one of his plants and actually walk towards them with a pair of scissors and actually get a reaction from the plant as he walked through their emotional field or their auric, the different parts of their auric field. And he could then actually almost see the auric field collapsing around the plant. So we can do that same with human beings. If you watch the news, for instance, and there's another soldier being killed in Afghanistan or somebody being killed in a road crash, your auric field will start to collapse. So the more they collapse, the easier it is for an illness or a bug to get through, or other people's emotional thought patterns to get through and start causing you problems. So they are our sort of protection, if you like, and it's very, very important to keep them clear and to keep them healthy.
Okay, thanks for getting into that, and also thanks to our chat room here. I now have more subjects to discuss with you. It says here, Adrian clears vortices in a house, elementals, and also energy attachments on a person with children as well as adults.
Yes.
I guess we'll take this piece by piece. It says here, Adrian clears vortices in a house. Could you elaborate on that statement and more specifically how you do that? I mean, maybe you already got into that, but I don't think you heard you mention the word vortices. So maybe you can get into that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. With all of this, it's really just with the power of intent. And it's important you really try and find out what the problems are in somebody's house to begin with. If you find out what the problem is, it's kind of showing respect to the problem, and then you can start doing the healing work on it. So, in particular, vortices or energy spirals, they're normally created by the crossing of, say, perhaps two watercourses or a watercourse and an energy line or energy line and a ley line. So literally, it's a bit like you find if your sort of two streams of water meet on the surface, you get these little eddies of water, these little whirlpools. And it's just really like a whirlpool of energy. And if you're sleeping above one of those, it will disrupt sleep patterns. It'll either heighten your intent, it'll heighten how you feel and you won't be able to sleep, or it'll almost sort of drag you down so you're sleeping too deeply, but you're not having the right type of sleep. So a lot of the times with that, you're using the power of prayer, you're using white light to do clearing on those energies, and that's really what I would do with attachments with people, with all the detrimental energies in people's houses.
All right. What exactly do you think it was meant by the word elementals? It says you clear vortices in a house. Elementals.
Elementals.
Sorry if you got into that. Yeah. If I repeat the same question, it's only because I couldn't hear you clearly.
Yeah, that's fine, mate. That's not a problem. Elementals, they are wonderful creatures. They're the earth spirits, they're the water spirits, they're the wind, and then the fire spirits as well. If you look at folklore, there's always fact behind folklore. So these are the gnomes and the trolls and the fairies that basically are in our gardens. Now, I don't see them. Most of the time, we're trying to sort of build our energy. We're trying to lift our vibration up to do sort of higher forms of healing, so that whether it's like Reiki or universal healing, these little chaps tend to vibrate at a much lower level. Now, I've got friends of mine that can see them, and basically they're great when they're outdoors, and they are the workers of the world. They do a lot of work on the plants and the animals and the shrubs and all the other bits around the place. But if you get them trapped in your house, they can actually act like a bunch of 9-year-olds. It's a bit like having say, sort of 8 or 9-year-olds in a house and just saying, guys, I'm just about to go out for half an hour, be good boys, and I'll be back. Don't get into any mischief. By the time you get back, your home will be completely wrecked. Well, if it had been a bunch of 9-year-olds like my boys were, then it would be completely wrecked. And elementals tend to act a bit the same way when they're trapped in people's houses. They can cause odd smells, they can cause light bulbs to flicker and blow, they can cause problems in the central heating system, they can make you feel very ill at ease in your house, they can make you feel, it's like a restlessness, but you're just aware of something not right in the house, and these things can actually cause those sort of problems. Normally getting them moved outside, I normally tend to call in one of my archangels to sort of come in and help. Tend to catch them in a nice gentle butterfly net and move them out into my garden or into one of the fields locally, and just sort of start talking to them and just encourage them to look after the flora and the fauna of everything they see around them, rather than being trapped in my house. They can also create problems for your pets. They can also cause problems for your pets when they're out in the garden. They kind of. A friend of mine's got a cat that often gets mugged by the elementals in the garden. So you often have to move the detrimental elementals from your garden. And again, moving them to a field or nearby hill, asking them to look after the flora and fauna there is a nice way of doing it. You're working with them. You're not forcing them out. You're talking to them as friends, because they can become quite spiteful as well, as we would as well if we were being ejected from somebody's house where we were quite comfortable. But generally, once they get trapped, they can't find their way out, and they just need a bit of human help sometimes.
All right. We've certainly got into this. It says Adrian clears energy attachment on a person, and it also says you're also with children as well as adults. All right. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to know what's the difference between clearing a child and an adult.
You tend to find, because probably humans, because they're often out in the big wide world, they're, certainly if you're around London or sort of New York or some of the bigger cities, and you're taking the metro or the tube into the cities, people are so close into your auric field. They're way into your emotional field, that if they've got problems, mental problems themselves, or stress or upset, or they have any attachments, excuse me, then they will easily attach to you. Attachments generally, they've been called entities in the past. I don't like the name entities because it kind of, Hollywood conjures up too many sort of nasty thoughts. Attachments generally to me are blobs of human energy, detrimental energy that, if you and I had an argument, or we had a crossword, or there's been a punch-up, or, whatever, it's sort of just detrimental gossip, somebody losing their job and, shouting at the boss, or somebody giving you a parking ticket and you get upset with them. Anything that sort of kind of creates negative vibrations can set one of these attachments up. And depending on how powerful they are and where they go, they can perhaps attach to me or you or anybody else. And once they're there, depending on how powerful they are and how weak we are, how strong our auric fields are, they can start pushing our buttons. You can start hearing voices, you can start feeling very down, you can start feeling quite upset about things. You can react in ways that you would perhaps not normally react in. So if you're not quick to get to temper, then suddenly you burst into temper very quickly, then there could well be an attachment there that needs to be moved on. Depending how many you've got, as to how quickly they will cause you to react to any problems. Children, again, in a playground, in school, they can be pretty spiteful towards each other. I think a lot of that has stopped, and the bullying has stopped over the years. So they're not quite so open to this, and also because they're quite robust people, they haven't got they don't watch the news, they don't look at newspapers, they haven't got the negativity or the detrimental thought patterns coming their way. They tend to be a bit more robust, whereas we poor adults will get it. They tend not to, but I will always check when I work through somebody's house for the adults and also for the children, and sometimes for the animals as well. You might get a dog or a cat that's acting out of character, which needs clearing as well. So that's kind of roughly what attachments are all about.
Okay, thanks for covering that. Before I get into some other stuff, just want to point out, I'd like some callers if possible. I guess we'll be taking calls in about 15 minutes or so. The call-in number is 646-478-4747. Mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. I need some callers, questions for Adrian, comments, whatever, I don't care. But hopefully someone will get in. Hopefully people calling from the UK won't have any problems calling in. It shouldn't be too good. Shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, it should be
figured
okay.
That out already. Yeah. But since you're so much knowledgeable on Earth energies, maybe you might know the mystery. I've heard things about this, the Bermuda Triangle. Do you have any, and also the Devil's Triangle near Japan? Do you know what those things are and what the deal with them is?
They do seem to be, I haven't done much work on them, but they do seem to be very, very energetic places. You tend to find there are some fairly major crossing points of Earth energy lines certainly at the Bermuda Triangle and the place in Japan. There's a couple of other places around the world where they meet as well. And again, I think it just creates a big energetic centre. You were saying about the gentleman that walked over a ley line at Stonehenge. If you magnify that sort of maybe 1,000 times because of all the energy lines meeting, you're going to get perhaps the sea boiling. You're going to get some unusual weather patterns starting up as well. So yeah, I'm very much of a believer in those particular areas being sort of quite difficult for human beings to survive in. It's just like living over a sort of very, very powerful vortex.
Okay, and speaking of the Earth, there is a mountain of evidence to suggest that the Earth is actually hollow, and I wanted to get into this because it might have something to do with the whole subject of Earth energies. This is according to researchers like David Icke, Alex Collier, and Alex Collier actually was able to show a picture of a satellite image of the Earth, and it showed something at the North Pole, which was in-your-face proof that there are holes at the poles that are. And the whole idea is the Earth has a crustal layer which has magma in it, and then below that is a hollow layer that's really, really big, and then down in the middle, at the core, it's not iron, it's more of a miniature star that was created by compressed material before the rest of the material went out to the crust and left this hollow part with the poles. And this kind of makes sense if you think about it, because the clothes go around in a dryer and a washer, and what happens? There's a hole in the middle, and everything goes to the outside. Why wouldn't the same happen to a spinning planet? Well, it all makes sense if you think about it. So there's also the whole subject of the hollow Earth being an area where higher dimensional beings exist, and there's also, and Jules Verne's book, Journey to the Center of the Earth, he was no fool. He knew the name of the tune. There is a lot of truth to that book, including the idea that there are living dinosaurs down in the hollow Earth. I mean, this is probably something that's out of the realm of what you talk about, but does hollow Earth fit into the whole subject of Earth energies, ignoring what's actually down there?
It's difficult because with dowsing, the great thing about dowsing is if you can ask a question, you can get the answer. It's just really then trying to take your conscious mind out of it, because whatever your conscious mind believes, you can often get that answer coming through from either a yes or no from a dowsing rod or from a pendulum. Now, as far as the center of the Earth, I believe it's crystalline, and I think a lot of power and a lot of healing work does come from that. And it's a surprising amount of people who don't use Mother Earth's energy to do healing. They tend to channel it from above. As far as the hollow Earth's concerned, it kind of doesn't kind of register with me particularly. I'd like to think it is, and I've seen a lot of the von Daniken books over the years with some of these photographs and things on there. I kind of Google Earth it every now and then to see if I can pick up anything, and I haven't seen anything yet. The dowsing rod says no, there's nothing down there apart from the crystalline structure. But hey, it's like all conspiracy theories, isn't it? There's got to be a modicum of truth behind it, but maybe one day we'll see it. But if there's a higher being, to me, higher beings will probably be able to cloak themselves. Why exist in the dark? I'm sure they'd be walking around the planet. Well, I would do any if I was a higher being, I hope.
Right, and since I mentioned the whole thing about hollow Earth and the center of the Earth being a crystalline star of sorts, I saw in a video, there were many videos about what actually happened on the date December 21st, 2012, and I bring this up because the center of the Earth becomes very key in one area of research, one individual who talks about this, and that individual was Andromeda Council contactee Talek. I mean, many people think the whole idea of alien councils is crazy, but he gives good advice. He's a very love-based individual. Hopefully he hasn't been captured by negative entities, as I mentioned earlier, but he did a video where he talked about what happened on December 21st, 2012, and he said that the alignment, the galactic alignment of sorts, and everything that went with it caused the Earth to pause, for lack of a better phrase. And during that pause, a vast amount of energy went into the center of the Earth and went to the core, and the core blossomed, for lack of a better phrase, into a higher dimensional entity. And this was the start, the kick start of Earth going from third dimensional Earth into fourth dimensional Earth, which Talik claims will be in January 2014. Not that I want people to obsess about that or anything.
Yeah.
But this, I think, if what he's saying is true, that the center of the Earth was changed from third dimensional consciousness based into fourth dimensional, and now over the course of how many years it's going to take, or in Talik's case, weeks. This is going to eventually cause all of Earth to ascend into a 4D level, and some say it'll be 5D immediately for reasons I don't really want to get into right now. But if this happened, you would expect to see a change in the Earth's energies. So do you think maybe there could be some truth to what Talik said?
Absolutely, and certainly that. Actually, one of the best things that happens on the 21st December is my birthday. But I tend to feel that the end of the world was never going to happen. In fact, it wasn't very widely reported. In fact, there were some American archaeologists down around the sort of the Mayan area who sometime last year discovered a room down there with a Mayan calendar that actually extended 5,000 years. Not 2,000 years as was previously thought of, 21st of December 2012. So we've got another 3,000 years to go before we have major problems. But I do believe that, yes, there is a new consciousness coming into the planet. Certainly if you look at the children these days, we have some incredibly knowledgeable old souls coming back down to the planet. I mean, if you look at it in basic terms, like my boys, I've got a 27-year-old son and a 23-year-old, they don't read manuals. You give them something to do, and they just go ahead and do it. Whereas when I was their age, you get a manual, you get a tape recorder to use, you'd start looking through the manual to see how to use it. They know what it's all about. There is a higher consciousness, and the children, I think, probably feel it more than we do. But certainly this year, I think for a lot of people who are following the spiritual pathway, have found it very, very hard. There have been some major changes going on in people's lives, whether they like it or not. If you went with it, then I think that you could, you survive a lot better than actually trying to work against it. But most people I know in the sort of holistic professions have found this year very, very hard and are hoping for better things next year. And I think next year will be a better year. I think it'll be a lot more stable year for people, for the more sensitive people. So I think, there was a big shift going on in 2012, which has continued this year, but not the way everybody hoped it would be.
Yeah, there sure were a lot of theories about what that day was about. Glad it wasn't the end of the world. I mean, one could make the argument that if enough people on planet Earth actually thought it would be the end of the world, it would have been the end of the world. And interestingly, another thing Talik said that I might just throw out for kicks, he says the planet Nibiru does exist. The Anunnaki come from it, and it was actually going to come near the Earth in the 2012 time frame, but the higher consciousness entities, aliens, whatever you want to call them, who are watching over us, they actually, the Andromeda Council played a role in this. They told Talik, Nibiru, they put it out of Earth's orbit, out of its normal orbit in the solar system, and put it above the plane of the planets. So it's good to know that there are some higher dimensional entities watching over us, if you can believe this story. And there is the idea that the planet Nibiru is all based on fear. Its coming is basically a sign of fear on Earth, and the 3,600 year cycle, maybe that number, the cycle, has something to do with fear cycles on Earth. I mean, it's only something I'm postulating. Zechariah Sitchin never actually mentioned anything about Nibiru's connections with fear, but I've heard other people like Andrew Bartzis, Akashic Records reader, talk about how it is fear-related, the planet Nibiru, in regards to our consciousness. But that's a whole entire story in and of itself. And wanted to go into archangels on a related note to higher dimensional entities, because you mentioned them earlier. I mean, you mentioned Archangel Raphael, and Joe Merritt, I mentioned, did that in his healing session. How many archangels are there? What is their job, and where are they on the hierarchy?
Wow. I think, again, it depends on who you want to talk to, but there are certainly hundreds, if not thousands of them. I tend to normally work with about 12 when I'm working. I use Metatron, who's a fairly sort of modern addition, although he's been around for quite a number of years, but tend to use him in a lot of my healing work. They're pretty much up there. We all get told that we've got free will down on the planet, and I think that we have to a certain point. I do believe the powers that be have a very unusual sense of humour. A lot of things that happen down here they may think funny, but I certainly don't. I think archangels are the medium. They kind of relay what we're trying to do to the powers that be, and vice versa. So they're the workers, I think, of the heavens that come down. I've got a very talented friend of mine that sees them. So whenever I've been doing any work anywhere and she pops in afterwards, there's normally one of the archangels there smiling, saying thank you for the work that's been done. So they do exist. I've had experience of actually not just channeling one, but also when I was doing some trance meditation, to actually have one come into my body, and that was the most, I think, blissful experience I've ever had in my life and probably ever will have. It was quite stunning. So that was kind of my proof that, yeah, there's something very, very special up there looking after us.
And in regards to dimensions of consciousness, these entities, aliens, whatever you want to call them, they come from higher dimensions. I mean, I'd like to get into some numbers here. I mean, the amount of dimensions there are is a matter of perspective. George Cavazos made that clear with me when I talked to him, that just because he says there's 12 dimensions of consciousness doesn't mean someone else will see 12. Like Indigo Child Matias De Stefano says there's 22, and I talked about that with George, and he said, well, maybe the multiple layers that exist within the fourth, I think he said that someone, I don't know if it's the fourth, but someone might see a specific area as 10 in one, whatever that may mean. So in regards to what dimension these archangels and other higher entities are, could you offer any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm just actually dowsing as we go through. I came up with the number 22 before you mentioned it, so I think 22 at the moment, and I think that can expand. Archangels are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on about the 7th level, I think, generally. That's where they exist.
Yeah, it's interesting. Silver Legion contactee Tanaf said that 7th dimension, there is no controversial love. I mean, people say that once you get to the 5th dimension, there is no more fear, but that does not mean that you will not use love in controversial ways, if I can put it any better. And Tanaf said that once you get to the 7th dimension is actually the 6th dimension is the last place where people might use love in questionable ways that are love, but not necessarily the best love. They might let selfishness get a hold of them. But that's another subject in and of itself. But it's interesting you mentioned Metatron, because I saw a presentation by this woman named Ashayana Dean on Project Camelot. It was like 6 hours worth of presentation material, and she seemed to present Metatronic energy in a negative way. It was a lot of material, and I can't say I remember everything, but can you think of any reason why she would present Metatronic energy in a negative way?
I think everybody looks at things in different ways, Andrew, and I tend to do quite a lot of healing. I teach courses over here, and I do one on healing with sacred symbols, and I do use the Metatron cube as one of the symbols, as much as the flower of life and the Triskel and other bits, the triple spiral and other bits and pieces. I've never had a negative reaction to it by anybody. Some people will find it very, very powerful. To me, it's a very modern symbol. It's certainly not a nice. It's not a comfortable symbol to look at. Whereas with the flower of life and with the spirals and other bits and pieces, you've got some lovely swirling patterns. The Metatron cube is very, very angular. But it's very dimensional as well. When you start looking at it, and if you can start looking at all the different dimensions, there's something quite special about it. So I think everybody has different ways of looking at things, and also, energies do change over the years. What might have been perhaps detrimental a number of years ago won't be detrimental now because of the shifting patterns of the planet. I've never found him a problem. I haven't worked with him much. It's only been the last 6 to 12 months in a meditation that came through that he came through and said, right, you better start working with me. So he's kind of joined my band of biker angels.
All right. I guess we might as well stay on the subject of sacred geometry because when I was at the N5D Return to Atlantis conference in Sarasota in early October, we talked. One of the presenters was Teal Scott, who is known for artwork, and the artwork that she's designed. Chris Hales of the Galactic History Show has said one of the best ways to expand love throughout the earth and raise the vibrations of the earth is to put Teal Scott's artwork all over the place. I mean, it's simple to say that every symbol has its own consciousness energy, and that symbol will radiate the energy outward. But you seem to be an expert on this. So for someone who doesn't understand how that works, how can a symbol, or like in Teal Scott's case, a love-based, fancy, lovely symbol, do that?
For me, it's really the intent that's put into a symbol. So it's not the actual symbol itself. It's a bit like the Buddhist mandalas. It's the amount of love, the amount of healing that's been put into it over centuries and centuries. The Metatron symbol now, obviously, is fairly modern. Some of the Sangiovanis as well, which are being used coming out from India, are also very, very interesting. But it's the intent that goes into them, for me, that actually that brings the healing rather than the actual symbol itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, too. And symbology does play a huge role. I saw a presentation by a guy named Mark Passio, who was a former Church of Satan member turned whistleblower, talked about how there is so much symbolism in the world of law enforcement and military personnel, like pentagram symbology and negative symbology right on the third eye or the heart on the badges and whatnot. And probably my personal favorite, well, I shouldn't say favorite because it's a negative thing, but the robe on a judge is a symbol for Saturn, and Saturn symbolism is Satan symbolism in Illuminati language, which is obviously negative language. So simply wearing a robe that symbolizes a satanic symbol is enough to make a judge behave in negative ways, more so than they would if they weren't wearing it. Most people don't think about this when deciding what to do with law enforcement personnel, but hey, I think it is a key way to solving that problem. But
very much so. And
one thing I would like to get into, speaking of solving problems, why is it, to the best of your knowledge, that this reality is a hassle? I talked to this about George Kavakos, and I'll probably ask other people, but it's something I want to get into because there are so many situations in life where if you do something that you are flat out allowed to do, have the right to do, you're going to get hassled and you're going to have problems for it. Like, I pity you guys in the UK for not having a government that acknowledges your right to bear arms. I know your crime rate is through the roof because people can't own guns. We in America have a government that doesn't acknowledge it, but believe me, they're trying to get rid of it to conquer America. That's why they stage things like Sandy Hook and whatnot. But the point I'm trying to make here is, even in America, if you have the right to own guns, you walk down the street, you're going to, with an open carry gun, even though it's your God-given right to do that, or creator-given right, some paranoid person is guaranteed to call the cops on you, and the cops might even not acknowledge that the right to bear arms does give you the right to walk down the street with an open carry gun, and they may arrest you as a result. I mean, as an expert on Earth energies, could you, to the best of your ability, explain why the energies of Earth are set up in such a way that those who exercise their creator-granted rights will get hassled for it?
It does happen that way. I think that we as human beings, I think if everything was perfect on the planet for us, I think there would always be somebody out there that wanted to conquer somebody else. It's just kind of the way we are, I suppose. Things are getting better, I think, over these. If you look at how many wars happened over the years, certainly here in England and the continent, it was constant for hundreds and hundreds of years. So things have calmed down a wee bit, but unfortunately human beings, the only lessons we really, really do learn big time are the hard ones, the bad ones. So hopefully you won't repeat the problem and do it all over again. But if life was perfect, then what are we on the planet for? I do believe that we're here to have a good life, but we have to go through some of the hardships to actually appreciate the good stuff. I hope that doesn't sound too trite. I would love to have a perfect life. It would be absolutely marvelous, but some of the hard stuff. I think if I hadn't have gone through some of the stuff that I've gone through with divorces and deaths in the family, then I couldn't empathise with a lot of the people that I'm working with at the moment. So you do have those reasons behind it as well. So I think the powers that be, as I mentioned a bit earlier, do have a very unusual sense of humour. I'm sure they think it's funny sometimes when you're living a hard time, but I tend to assure them that it isn't. But I think you need to learn the bad stuff to be able to empathise with people when they're going through the same thing.
All right. Sounds fair. Sounds reasonable. And this may not be your specialty, but wanted to get into the human consciousness essence. There is a word on the street by the Pleiadian Nordic aliens that ET contacting Billy Meyer has spoken with, who say that humans' consciousness, soul, essence, whatever you want to call it, does not enter a unborn fetus until 21 days, 3 weeks into the pregnancy. And the Pleiadian Nordics actually have a philosophy on their planet where abortion is okay within the first 3 weeks because it takes that long for a consciousness essence of a fetus to have a sense of being a human. I'm sure it may be different for other animals, but as someone who's an expert on holistics and earth energies, could you maybe elaborate on that and give your take on human essence entering somebody?
Yeah, now this is my take on it, that we tend to, I feel, choose what we want to do when we get down to this planet. We tend to choose our parents. We choose the people that we're going to be reincarnated with. And then we will choose the body, a baby's body. But I believe that your consciousness is there almost the moment that you are, that you connect. So the sperm and the egg connect. I believe it happens there and then. But I also believe that you have the walk-ins. You have people over the years that change character completely. They come as a completely different person. In fact, nobody recognises them because it's not their consciousness in their body anymore. That's gone and somebody's come through. And I believe the same thing can happen with babies. I do believe the consciousness can change over maybe the first 3 to 4 weeks. But I think after that, it's pretty much set. You are here, you're coming to the planet, and, get ready for it.
Yeah, and on a related note, there's the subject of reincarnation. Andrew Bartzis said that reincarnation is not our friend. It's actually something that the malevolent archontic entities imposed upon us after the fall of Atlantis in order to keep us from attaining higher states of consciousness. So you don't want to be reincarnated. It's not your friend. You want to be able to, once you die, go into paradise. I mean, can you agree with that? Is there truth to that? I mean, there has to be, because it's Andrew Bartzis. So, but can you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think that is very, very true. I think, but once we get up there, if life is so perfect, once we pass over, there's lots and lots of people wanting to come back down to this planet all the time. It's the playground, I think. I think we're down here, whether it's a hard life, good life, bad life, whatever it may be. It's an interesting place to be. I think if you were lying on the beach all day, every day for thousands and thousands of years not learning anything, I think that you're going to get fairly bored. So for me, this is the place to be. Forget the heaven and hell concept. I think that, when we die, we pass over, we go to the higher realms. So I think perhaps you could say, well, perhaps we're living hell on earth here at the moment. This is a hard one. This is not an easy place to be. But from what I understand, when I sort of do tap into the higher realms and get messages coming through, either through me or through medium friends, there's a whole queue of souls wanting to come back down to this planet. So once one person passes over, there's somebody ready to take their place very, very quickly. So I think it's a great place to be. It's a bit like sort of Disney World on acid, I think, in some ways. But it is a special place for people to be.
All right. I wanted to get in to see if maybe you've been hassled for your job. It just occurred to me that maybe because of your experience and your expertise in what you do, perhaps the archonic entities have toyed around with you, like maybe toyed with your mind and toyed with your abilities like they toyed around with George Cavassalis' mind. Do you know of any instances where maybe the archontic forces have screwed around with you because they perceive you as a threat to their agenda?
Yeah, they do, and there's something you have to be. It's a bit like, for me, you have to make sure you psychically protect yourself when I'm working, which is why I tend to do most of my work remotely from here in England. And I work for people all over the world remotely, through floor plans and Skype and emails. But there's an awful lot of people out there that get hit by dark forces. It's a bit like going outside when it's raining. You make sure you put your raincoat on when you go outside so you're not going to get wet. And this is the same when you're dealing with some of the darker forces. And a lot of it is, for here is a lot of human emotional stuff rather than off-planet stuff. You make sure you get your auric field, everything else protected and everything else clear, then you're generally 99.9% sure that you're not going to get mucked around with. But I am aware that these powers are out there, which is why I protect myself every morning before I get out of bed, before I talk to anybody, before I'm sort of really conscious, so that I'm nice and safe in my sanctuary for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and on meditation, perhaps becoming a problem is a debatable issue. Some say if you obsess about meditating, you're going to get into a state of ritual, which is something you do not want to get into. Meditation can only help you unless you let it become a ritual when you obsess about it. And I guess to some extent there's truth to that. But another thing that I've heard is that when you meditate, you don't want to let energy come into you, because even if you ask your guardian angels and spirit guides for help to guide you and protect you through the meditation, even if you do that, if you let energy come into you at will, you're still going to make yourself prone to negative entities. And they say to counter that, just radiate out energy with especially your heart chakra, but maybe your other chakras as well. And would you agree that you should, when you meditate, it is in your best interest to radiate energy out of you and say, I'm infinite, I'm going to radiate energy instead of letting energy come into you?
Yeah, absolutely. It really doesn't matter what you're doing, Andrew. Whether you're working in an office, if you're a hairdresser, whatever else it may be, anywhere that you come into contact with people, you need to make sure you're psychically protected. You can just go out and do the shopping, dropping your kids at school. It really doesn't matter. Psychic protection out of everything is probably one of the most important things to do. So, bring energies in by all means, but make sure they're the right energies. But then also with psychic protection, you can give out unconditional love, if you like. Don't individualize it, but to the whole planet. But make sure you keep yourself protected first and foremost, and then you can be a lot happier in life.
Yeah, of course you can. And interesting, I was reading an article on in5d.com. By the way, I read an article on in5d every single day. I like to say an in5d article a day keeps the Matrix away. And Greg uploads some really great articles on that website. I recommend everybody take 3 minutes or so out of your day just to read an article on that site. But he's currently in the process of uploading someone else's series on how to ascend. And among other things, he talks about how the proper way to ask your spirit guides and guardian angels and everything. And seems to have lost my train of thought. There was something specific I wanted to get into about what it is about in the article. Maybe it'll come to me. But since I'm on this, people would ask, how do we ascend? Well, as someone who's an expert on earth energies, could you maybe give some bits and pieces on how to properly ascend?
I wish I knew, Andrew. That is a big question to ask somebody. I think that you have to kind of live a life that's true to you in many ways, and I think that the more true you can be to yourself, the easier it's going to be to ascend or move into the higher realms once you pass over. I don't know whether it's right for us to do so yet. I know they talked about the Mayans potentially having all ascended at one stage. Whether we've got to that level or not, whether the whole planet could do it or just certain people. But I think that the more true that you are to yourself, the better you are to other people, the more chance you have of actually becoming a very much more spiritual being, and then hopefully ascension would be part of that. Would be, if you like, the next step.
Yeah, because there seems to be a little debate as to whether you should do something or do nothing in regards to ascension, in regards to like whether it's out of our control. I mean, I tend to think if I do my part to help raise the vibrations of the earth, it can only speed up the process. But then again, I've also heard a contradictory argument from this. I think it was Jim Self in that episode of In5D Radio that he appeared on. That one of the significances behind the date December 21st, 2012, was the day you are free. And unfortunately, I don't remember what he went into the details in that, but I do remember seeing another video where I think this guy did explain what it was. This guy was a whistleblower talking about government time travel technology going into the future, and they noticed that through this technology, they discovered that December 21st, 2012, one of the significances behind that day is it doesn't matter what you do after that point, the end result will be the same regardless of what you do, and that's what Jim Self probably meant by free. You're free to do whatever you want. It will not change the final outcome of the ascension process of planet Earth, whatever that may be, because it's already been set in stone. So can you maybe elaborate on that a bit?
No, I think that's a very, very good point. The difficulty with all this is if you make a prediction, then it can either be 100% right or 100% wrong, and so it's very, very difficult to actually pin it all down. I believe that it is everybody's. Everybody has the potential to ascend. Whether it's going to be a sort of planetary thing or whether it's just the sensitives will do it. I'm not totally sure. It's not something that I really give a great deal of thought to, because I still quite enjoy my life here on the planet and doing what I'm doing and learning. I think also the great thing about living in the 21st century is that we can do things, we can do healing so much quicker than perhaps we could do in the past. If you look at some of the early shaman, it would take them days and maybe weeks to do what a lot of healers can actually do in maybe half an hour to an hour these days. So things have speeded up. And I think perhaps ascension may be part of that process. Yeah,
and one thing people do that they think will help speed up the ascension process is help yourself with your own metaphysical abilities. There was this video I made reference to earlier about where Greg Prescott uploaded to the N5D YouTube channel about how to enhance metaphysical abilities. I talked about how the aura, if you try to see the aura, you'll see it better. But there were a couple of other things he discussed in that video. There was one where you put your hand over a deck or a card in a deck of cards. You don't use the king, queen, or jack. You just take the numbers, and the black is colder, for lack of a better phrase, vibrates at a lower frequency than the red. So if with enough practice using your left hand, which is your receiving hand, unlike your right hand, which is your giving energy hand, your left hand, which receives energy, put it over the card with enough practice, you can tell whether it's red or black, and also how many spades, clubs, or whatever it is are there. And that was one of the other things. There was the other last thing he talked about, which is the thing that probably what people would find the hardest time accepting could be done. It's like something out of a Star Wars movie, many people would say, but it's moving things with your own mind. Like Yoda took Luke's ship out of the water in the Star Wars movie after Luke said, "I don't believe you can do that," and Yoda told him, "Well, that's why you failed, because you don't believe you can do that." Well, Greg, according to the video, if you believe the video, you can use your hand, I think it would be your right hand in this case, to move objects. And they say start off small, like maybe a torn off piece of small paper, torn off the corner of a paper or something that's really small and really light, and with enough practice, you will be able to move it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to assume, yes, it is possible to do this, but why is it that some people are better than this than others? To this day, I still can't move something with my hand.
No, I can't either, but we all should have the ability, in telekinesis, we should all be able to do it. But of course, our minds are so full up of day-to-day junk, if you like, or day-to-day living. I can't call it junk, that's unfair, but day-to-day living, it's getting to the office, it's working, it's getting home, getting showered before you go out. It's getting ready for the radio show, or it's cooking your food, or it's going shopping, or going to a restaurant. We've got so much that we do. And if we haven't got anything to do, we'll busy ourselves and find something to do. I couldn't do, with my estate agency business, I certainly couldn't do that and do what I'm doing now. I was either going to be commercial or I was going to be spiritual. I couldn't do both because you can't have foot in both camps. So if you really want to do something very, very well, you've got to put your heart and soul into it all, which is what I do with my Healing Your Home business. So, that's I think why, is that if people give themselves enough chance, enough thought, and they can do it, but it takes a lot to actually get to that point.
It sure does. That's why I can't seem to do it. So, oh my God, can you believe that the echo is gone? Oh, my God. You know what? I'm going to give Blog Talk Radio an earful about this. I have to listen to this whole entire show to get your very valuable information, all because of this terrible glitch. And, boy, am I pissed off to see that the echo has been solved right now. Boy, this makes me whatever. But you know what? I might as well get over it now. And we got a little less than 15 minutes to go. It's a shame we don't have any callers. I'm guessing they decided not to call in because of that 20-minute bug at the beginning, and because of that, they were probably thinking, well, I'm not going to bother calling into the show because it ain't going to go well. It's a shame, but moving on, one of the key ways to fix the problem of not being able to ascend is to learn how to deal with negative entities, be they reptilians, greys, or what have you. And I guess in regards to protecting yourself from negative entities, I always, before I go to sleep, among other things, I ask my guardian angels and spirit guides, please keep my fellow humans and me safe from negative entities with negative intentions. And assuming that I don't want to just ask my guardian angels and spirit guides to help me the whole time, I want to try to do this on my own. If I don't want to suffer from any problems involving negative entities, what do you suggest are the key ways to go about doing that to prevent negative entities from harming you or affecting you?
Yeah, what I do, I've got a book out, which I should really plug, I suppose, but there's a chapter in there about how to protect yourself psychically. I tend to breathe colours through my chakras, and as I breathe, say, through my base chakra, I'll breathe the colour red into my body and then out to form a barrier, and gradually build up those rainbow colours all the way around you. I do that every day before I start work, fill myself with divine light. I do various clearings on myself as well, probably once every sort of 3 to 4 days, just in case I've got anything coming towards me, any attachments if I've been out. The book basically gives you a lot of tips, or it tells you how to do all the healing work yourself. That's one of the reasons why I wrote it, is so that telling people how to find the problem, what to look for, and also how to do the healing on yourselves afterwards. It's all fairly simple. It's all fairly down-to-earth stuff. It's very much 21st century healing. So just be very aware of how you're feeling. If you have sudden headaches, just check out why. It may just be an attachment. Suddenly something's come through and sort of attached itself to your auric field or one of your chakras. Again, it's very, very simple to actually get them cleared.
It's good to know. By the way, we do have a caller. Looks like someone heard me and felt sorry for me, so hopefully they're not just listening or whatever. So area code 504, area code 504, you are on the air. Welcome.
Hi. I'm tuning in late, and I apologize if I missed anything, but I'm very interested in the subject of Dowsers.
Yeah.
I do it myself with my car keys, but a lot of times I don't feel like I can trust it. Like, if my,
yeah.
I'll do it like 3 times, and sometimes I'll get a different answer.
Okay. Generally, from that point of view, and hi, good evening, or good evening to you. And it's about just before 1 o'clock in the morning here. Yeah, dowsing, it's an interesting one because people do find it very, very difficult to dowse for themselves sometimes. So
Okay.
what I would, if as soon as you just dowse it once, don't dowse it again or again, because the powers that be upstairs will say, look, you've got the answer, we've given you the answer, don't do it again and again because you don't need to. But what sometimes people do find it very difficult, you need to kind of ground yourself sometimes. So just imagine, when you're dowsing, keep both feet on the floor, take a nice deep breath and just kind of clear your mind and then start dowsing the question. But douse it in a way it's just a bunch of words. It doesn't mean anything to you. You're just dowsing the words. And then see if you get a yes or no response and just see how you get on with it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it does. I have a very hard time keeping grounded, and the answers that I don't hang on to the most are the easiest to get. I went through Hurricane Katrina, and someone said, you see, if you get anything as far as how long it takes to, and I apologize for the phone, the electricity to come back on, and I got 3 weeks. I'm like, that's impossible. It never takes that long, and it took 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow.
You can do it. Yeah, but of course, don't forget with all this, now, depending on where you are in the city, for instance, it may only be 3 or 4 days for some people, but it may be 3 weeks for others.
Right.
This is the problem with dowsing. You have to be so specific in the question you're asking. So if you use get the big question first, then try and break it down to the finite point as quickly as you possibly can. That's always the difficult one for most people when they're dowsing.
Okay. And it's okay for health? I mean, I don't know. I guess I have a hard time trusting myself.
It's not easy. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll plug the book quickly because there's a whole section in there on dowsing for health as well. If you go online onto my website, there's also some charts on there you can start downloading as well. And
awesome.
What I tend to do is, if I'm dowsing for myself, is just, when I'm dowsing, just run my finger down the chart, and when the pendulum gives me a yes response, that's a particular food I might need or might have an intolerance to, or a vitamin that I need, perhaps a little bit more, or a mineral that I might need as well. So, dowsing for health is something that I do a lot.
Well, thank you. I'm going to re-listen to the show. I just tuned in late, and I'm kicking myself, but thank you so much. I find this fascinating.
Right. A pleasure. Thanks for the talk.
By the way, sorry about that. I just want, since you were going to re-listen to the show, let me, so you don't waste your time, don't bother listening to the first 29 minutes or so. We had a lot of problems with that echo that I was hearing, driving me crazy and making it hard for me to talk or hear myself or hear anybody else. And getting the guests on the show because we seem to be a little ignorant about how you're supposed to call the America from the UK. So don't waste your time listening to the first 28, 29 minutes. Just tune into the last half hour. But sorry to interrupt. You were talking. Continue.
No, thank
fantastic.
you.
Good.
I'm going to his website now.
Yep, wonderful. Yeah, dowsingspirits.co.uk.
Well, I'm there now. I'm gonna check it out. And you have a book too?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon.com. So we've got
I'm excited.
So
thank
see
you.
what you think, and
glad I found you.
let me know. Fantastic.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Bye.
Good stuff. Okay. Bye-bye. So really,
if you haven't hung up yet, 504, I just wanted to say the website is dowsingspirits.com, dowsingspirits.co.uk. That's the website. I don't think we got the name of the book, but
she's
even on right now. She's not. So you were saying?
Yeah, I think with a lot of this work, when working on people's houses, it's so important that, it's not just your emotions that can be lodged in the house. It can be inherited stuff, stuff you've got from people you bought the house from. And there can be a lot of negative emotions and negative vibes around people's houses. And, it's the book. I've really tried to write it so it's a self-help book for people. They can do it themselves.
Okay.
Which is kind of important.
I guess I'll try to find a way to advertise that when I upload the video to YouTube. I guess I'll try to remember to put the name of that book in. Hopefully that'll get more people to buy it.
Yeah, brilliant.
We got about 6 minutes left. So
Okay.
what could I ask you? All right, here's just a random question.
Yep.
I have actually been seeing a lot of, on my clocks, 1111s, and I've also seen the number 911 a lot for reasons that I think are kind of understandable. There is a symbology behind the number 911 besides what happened on that date. But I've also seen a lot of instances where I've been watching YouTube videos, and then I look at the timer, and it just so happens that the same number is on each side of the colon, and this happens a lot. Now, I'm assuming this means I'm on the right track because, well, according to Silver Legion Contactee Tanath, whenever you see something like that, it's the universe's way of saying, hello, I'm here, I'm trying to tell you that I'm here, so I'm putting these numbers there. Is that true? Yeah,
I believe that it is. Certainly when before I got involved in this full time, I rarely ever saw that the clock saying 11:11. Once you start doing the dowsing work, the healing work, whatever else, 11:11, it always seems to come up, and it comes up pretty much every day now. So that's a classic sign. Yeah, you're on the right path, and things are going in the right direction.
Yeah, and maybe in regards, we clearly discussed why I see the number 911. Now, it's kind of inauspicious on one hand because the number 911, metaphysically speaking, means falling short of one's sovereignty and will and loss of love and consciousness. And but on the positive side, if it can be considered a positive side, I can honestly say that finding out the official story of 9/11, in particularly the laws of physics behind the buildings collapsing violated on multiple grounds, I mean, that opened up a whole can of worms in regards to my awakening. So did it with a lot of other people. So I'm thinking maybe the reason I'm seeing the number 9/11 is the universe is trying to tell me, hello, this is what woke you up, finding out the truth about this, and I'm trying to symbolize that. Do you think maybe that's what the universe is trying to tell me whenever they show me the number 9/11?
There's a very, very good chance on that. Yeah, the great thing about dowsing is, you can start asking the questions yourself and see what the answers come back with. But, the universe will, it'll get in touch with you in ways that some people it'll be sort of numeric, some people it'll be numbers, some people it'll be more visual, some people it'll be oral. I think it really depends on, which of your senses work better than others. But I think, they will use whatever means they can to get in touch with you and just give you that prod to say, Andrew, you're going in the right way, mate. You've got some really good thoughts and good stuff coming your way, and you're getting it as well.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, there's only 3.5 minutes left, so I guess just to finish up, I'm going to have to get into what I'm going to be doing next week's show. So before I say goodbye to you, Adrian, I will be listening to this again. I have no choice because I can barely hear a damn thing. So I don't expect to hear from him in the near future, though, because I'm trying to get as many guests as possible on my show before I give anybody double dips. Because I think that's the fairest way to go about getting guests on my show. But maybe I'll send you a message every so often. So it was great talking with you. Hope to hear from you again in the future. Catch you around later.
Have a good Christmas as well. Okay. Cheers, Andrew. For
later.
Now. All the best. Bye. Bye.
Well, folks, can't believe this had to happen. Funny how in the last 9 minutes of that show with George Kavasilis, they were able to hear the show, but everything else was shut off. It was pretty much the same thing with this show with the echo. It didn't last for everything except the final 9 minutes. I wonder why. Definitely going to give Blog Talk Radio an earful about this, but I'll try to be nice about it. But in other words, I am going to have Laura Eisenhower and Dr. Dream, a couple, kill two birds with one stone on my show next week. That is the plan. And Laura is going to discuss Gaia Sophia energy. She is a Gaia Sophia, I believe, Cosmic Gaia Sophia. And also bases on Mars. We're going to be talking about time travel technology. Oh, yeah, by the way, I should have made this clear. She is the great-granddaughter of Dwight Eisenhower, as many of you who are listening are probably aware. And she is in a relationship with Dr. Dream, who I asked to have on the show, too, and they agreed, hey, let's kill two birds with one stone. Let's have each other on. He's an expert on metaphysics and whatnot, and also he did a ceremony of sorts with us when I met him at the in 5D Return to Atlantis conference. Laura was a speaker. He led us in a beach galactivation. We were sitting on the beach, and he using essences and bells and that made sounds. We galactivated on the new moon on the quartz crystal sand beach. It was a great experience. And who knows, maybe we'll do something metaphysical on the show with him. But it'll be Laura Eisenhower and Dr. Dream together on the show next week, barring any problems. Problems, boy. Maybe I should ask my guardian angels and spirit guides, could you try to do your part to make sure that my show doesn't have any glitches or problems? Then again, I try not to ask my guardian angels and spirit guides for help too much. I try to follow a philosophy of got to do it on your own. Because even George Cavassalis said if you ask your guardian angels and spirit guides for too much help, they will not help you because it's a sign of greed, and greed is fear-based energy and not love-based energy, unless, of course, you're greedy for love, which we should all be. So, hope to see you all next week. Hopefully won't have any problems. Please call in. Namaste. This is Andrew Fisher of Nature of Reality Radio, signing off.